up in arms about the whole Trump thing.
I haven't really looked into that because I, unlike most people, don't give a shit about what Trump does all the time. So I know that he got raided.
Yeah.
That's the extent of my knowledge on that.
I have heard about it in passing or whatever. I guess he had some classified documents in his house.
In his house?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Whether or not it's true, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess from what I heard,
is that what the Alphabet Boys found?
He had them in a safe or something. I don't know.
Well, at least they were in a safe.
Yeah.
He didn't have them in the oven.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I really wouldn't either.
It's just, I find it funny because he's such a narcissist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
For him to be like, oh, yes, this would be perfect.
I imagine he just takes him out and just looks at him whenever he wants to feel important.
These are the most classified documents.
They're the best, most classified documents ever. But so it was on his So I don't really know anything about his properties. What is Mar-a-Lago? What is that? Is that his house, or is it one of his homes?
I think it's a resort community.
Community.
Yeah, I think he owns the resort community. So I think he has a house on the property. I don't really know.
So for a bunch of rich retirees.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's just for rich people
to
go and do rich
that
people
was
things.
the place that got raided by the FBI.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think it's in New Jersey or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's crazy. It's kind of crazy that we just heard about the raid after it happened.
Yeah.
Usually there's a lot of chit chat before, leading up to something like that. Well, I don't know, because we all heard about Epstein's Island right after the fact.
Well, Alex Jones had been trying to blow the whistle on that for years.
Oh, had he?
Yeah, nobody listened to him. Speaking of which, I guess he was in court this week too.
Yeah,
it was $42 million settlement or something like that.
Something about it had something to do with the Sandy Hook shooting.
Yeah, I think his thing was he had said it was faked or something like that.
He said the shooting was faked?
Yeah, he said that the shooting was faked, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they brought that up in court to sue him in a civil case.
It was something about
I'm not sure exactly
parents.
what that. Yeah, I'm not sure what that would fall under
the
for them to be we're going to sue you for.
Yeah. I haven't really paid much attention to anything about that going on. I mean, there's just so much.
There's too much in the news cycle.
There's too much going on.
And the only reason why I saw any of it or whatever was because once again I was on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was scrolling through YouTube, and it's these little news stories were popping up down there.
CBS paid for you to look at their thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I find that incredibly strange that CBS, because obviously it's a failing model. Nobody really watches it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's where are they getting all this money from to do paid advertisements?
It's just such the 24-hour news cycle is just such an institution.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if it failed or if it collapsed, what would anybody do? What would you watch?
Well, that's the thing is that
would you just move on with your life?
That's the thing is I don't, other than YouTube, I don't really watch it.
What, the news?
And then even with YouTube, I don't really watch it. I just see I'll go and hover over the thing and it'll bring up the little the preview or whatever, and it'll play it on the small player.
Yeah.
And then I'll be okay, and then I move off of it.
I got everything I needed from that.
Yeah. Yeah, because after that, then they just kind of pontificate on,
Yeah. It's I don't need to hear your opinions on everything. Just tell me what happened.
Yeah, it's I just want the information.
Yeah.
It's then let me do with it what I will.
Yeah. I am every 1 or 2 years I'll find myself watching a CNN piece on something or like or a Fox News piece, just whatever it happens to be, whatever comes up.
Yeah.
And I'll just look at it, and it's always some like personality that they've got who is pouring a lot of emotion into whatever it is they're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
As if they're like the messiah of rationality.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, aren't you just a news anchor?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty like I'm just look from the outside looking in. I'm just saying, it looks like what you're supposed to do is tell me what happened, and that's it. You're not supposed to come out here and tell me how I'm supposed to feel about it. Yeah, but that's the only bit of news that I get is when I just like randomly scroll past a video of it, or like see a headline, and that's why I don't really try to talk too much about it. Yeah. Other than, did you hear about such and such? And they'd be like, yes. I'm like, crazy, isn't it?
It just reminds me of like the NPC meme where it's like they remove the chip and then put the chip back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And it's so funny because I see the right like posting that meme all the time. It's like, yeah, well, Fox News does the same thing with you, so.
Yeah, any meme that you are applying to the left can absolutely be applied to you. Absolutely. I think it's funny that
although I do find it interesting that they have decided to do that with Trump, because what that does is that it sets a precedence that that's okay
to
go after former presidents. So what does that now mean? Like if the power balance swaps, which it will, because it always does, it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
It's like now you've opened up this can of worms where people are going to be like, interesting, isn't it?
What does Obama have in his house?
Yeah. And then they'll be like, oh, well, we're going to go after W, which W's got a bunch of war crimes.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. There's a lot of juicy details there.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I was going to say is it's funny because, you know, I'm seeing a lot of people on the right who are screaming and hollering about the FBI. We need to defund the FBI. We need to get rid of the FBI because they searched at Trump's house and they found something.
Yeah, yeah, right. And then
so it's like, why now? Because they went after the guy with the red tie.
Now you're saying defund the police.
Yeah. Now you have a problem with it because they went after your guy. Yeah. So when a Republican gets in office and he says, "Oh, we need to search Obama's house," you know, just because they did it to Trump.
Right.
Everybody who was saying, you know, fuck the FBI, 1312, you know,
right.
They're going to be like all in support of it.
Right. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Because, it's just fuck those people over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's talking about memes again. There's like another meme where they do like the panel memes or whatever. And it's the like the Lord of the Rings one where he's like cast it into the fire and destroy it.
Yeah.
And it was the Ministry of Truth or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was like the GOP is like, no, I don't think I will.
Oh, my God. It's just,
and the funny thing is that it's like it's broken down so far now into like the tribal stuff where it's like it's not really based on any like morals or ethics or anything anymore. No. It's just like we're just directly opposed to whatever it is that side over there says that they are in favor of.
Yeah. Even if it was something that like, if it was like one of your key points.
Right.
And somebody across the aisle was like, hey, we agree with you on this.
Right.
They'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't agree with that. Fuck you. Go suck a dick. I hate you.
Exactly. Well, we could go into depth on like what the issues are or whatever, but I think a lot of it stems from it's like
I think people want to belong to something.
Right. They want something that they feel like empowered by.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because
and
maybe it's just because people feel like they have such little control over their own lives that they feel like an outward expression of aggression.
Yeah. Like that's me.
Yeah, that's me contributing to society.
Yeah. I just couldn't imagine basing my entire personality around, what particular politics I agree with or don't agree with.
Well, it's like, who is it? Socrates that said, if you don't participate in politics or something like that, politics will participate with you.
I mean, you're affected by it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every decision that's made is going to affect you directly.
And
the thing is like there's other things in your life to be concerned with.
Right. And I think, especially from the standpoint of being a parent, like I just don't have time for it anymore.
Yeah.
Like
You're too busy chasing this 4-year-old around.
Yeah, right. It's like
making sure she doesn't like stick her finger in the electrical outlet.
I have a human I have to raise. I don't have time to constantly be involved with this, which I actually think is pretty interesting, considering that. And I'm going to make a generalization here, but it seems to me that like with people on the left seem to be more activist types, right?
Yeah.
So they seem to go out to the rallies and do all the chanting and all that stuff. And the right doesn't seem to do that as much. They just seem to kind of bitch and moan and piss on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just from general observation from what I've seen, right?
I agree.
So
the last time that the right got together, they sacked the Capitol.
Right. As they tend to do. And so I think maybe what it is that people on the left I don't think they're having kids as often as people on the right are. That just doesn't seem to be their MO.
Well, consider a lot of the stances on sexuality and abortion and contraception on the left.
Right. It doesn't lend itself to procreation. Correct.
People on the right are typically more conservative and, traditional.
Right.
Who, some people think that, like, contraceptive of any kind is, like, blasphemy.
Right.
I don't get that.
That's wild.
What the fuck are you talking about?
That is wild. So you're telling me that every time that you have sex should be for the sole purpose of procreation?
Every single time? Every time.
Yeah, every time.
Well, a lot of those people have several children.
That's true.
Yeah. It's like when I was doing that family tree thing. And a lot of the people, like, 2-3 generations ago in our family tree had like 8 kids, 7 kids.
Yeah, because they all lived on farms and the infant mortality rate was through the roof.
Well, it could be that. It could also be they didn't have access to contraceptives.
True.
And people have been fucking since the dawn of time, and they're never going to stop.
Right.
You're just never going to stop people from putting their willies in things and putting things in their hoo-has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but the earliest contraceptive is, hey, don't do that to me. Like,
yeah. And it didn't always work.
But I mean, obviously, like that, I do find it interesting that, like you said, with people on the right, there's still some of them. They're like, no, you shouldn't be allowed to like buy condoms.
Yeah.
It's like I can go with you to a point.
Yeah.
Like on the abortion thing.
Yeah.
Like if we bring it to like its logical conclusion, it's like if you had left it alone.
Yeah.
It's like it would have become a person, right? It's like, but at the same time, I can't. What am I going to do in order to stop you? I'd have to use force and violence to do so.
And I'm not going to do that.
And I'm not going to do that either.
Also, what quality of life would that child have?
Right.
If you're not in a position to raise it,
right,
or give it, the attention, whatever it needs. So there's, I can't just draw a definitive line and say this is right or wrong.
Right.
It's not like. I don't think that wearing a condom is on par with having an abortion, like some of these people do. Like, you're telling me these are equal evils in your eyes.
Right.
It's like next time.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, well, anything else that comes out of your mouth, I'm not listening to.
Yeah, I'm not listening to that. It's like, we grew up in the Deep South in the Bible Belt when Harry Potter was big. Do you remember how?
I remember that.
How everybody was up in arms about Harry fucking Potter? It's witchcraft. Yeah. It's the devil. It's a book.
Yeah, I remember that.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, I remember that because I think Mom read the first book before she ever gave it to me. She's like, I don't know what they're talking about. Give me the book.
Yeah. It's a book obviously it's a book for children.
It's the same thing that they did with the Buzz Lightyear movie where they're like, oh, there's a lesbian kiss in it. Like they were over there like slamming their clams together.
Yeah. It's the Golden Compass.
Right.
You remember how many times you heard they kill God in that movie?
Yeah.
They kill a God in that movie.
Yeah.
They don't kill, like, the Christian God. They're not like, hey, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's just,
They didn't ascend to heaven
Yeah.
and
it's,
then murder the creator of all things.
yeah, this isn't a Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
It's crazy that people will draw such a hard and defined opinion about something
Right.
and know nothing about it.
Well,
Only because they want to fit in, they want to belong to that
right. You want to be
groupthink.
in the in group.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just can't do that.
No.
I can't walk around, and I know that I have, and I probably do, but I can't knowingly
Yeah.
do that. Just say, this is how I feel about such and such without having any kind of idea
Right.
of what that thing is.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the reason why that's such like a strong, it has to be some type of like biological response for like survival, right? It's like in order for you to survive, you have to be part of the group.
Part of the pack.
Part of the pack, be part of the tribe, because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Like you can't, if we were living back in caveman times,
Yeah.
which our body is still
Yeah.
like sort of, like there's all these ancient type of processes that are running in our brain in the background
that we don't need anymore.
that we don't need anymore. And I do find it funny that people
like
are
Goosebumps.
Yeah, I feel like people that are like, oh, we're so much more, we're past that.
No, we're not.
It's like, no, you're not.
Not even close.
No, you're not. You're still attached to this meat sack
Yeah.
that's walking around.
Humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and we've only been modernized for like 300
Yeah, exactly.
300 years. Yeah, we didn't just suddenly, we didn't
Yeah,
ascend.
not too long ago, they were using a guillotine to chop a lot of people's heads off. Less than 200 years ago, they were burning people at the stake because they thought they were witches.
Yeah. Maybe less than that, we had slaves.
Right.
We said these people will work for free.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
Just
Because they
because
don't look like me.
look different.
Yeah, they don't look like me.
It was interesting you said we have like our physiology has a lot of leftover from when we, relied on one another to survive in a most basic sense.
Right.
Like our skeletal structure is still evolving to better suit being bipedal.
Right.
Like our spines are curved, and that's why everyone's back is fucked all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to be walking around upright. That was never the intention. We were supposed to be walking around on our knuckles like gorillas
Yeah.
do. That was the intention. That's why your shoulders slope forward. That's why when you're sitting at rest, it naturally does this.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's supposed to do. And then like our craniums have gotten much larger, and the vaginal openings have gotten much smaller because we are bipedal. We're
Yeah.
forcing ourselves to be bipedal and getting smarter, and we're actively working against ourselves
Yeah.
in childbirth. It's interesting that there's no other animal that just rails so hard against just like evolution and biology the way we do.
Well, yeah, it is funny that you bring that up because everybody seems to do this thing where it's like they go, oh, look at the evolution of the human, like
Yeah.
as far as biology is concerned, and like we're continuing to evolve, and they're like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
No, we're done. We are done.
No, how can you say that?
Yeah.
The hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, well, we're done if an asteroid hits us. And then we're all
that's
dead.
it. That's
Yeah.
over with. It's there's that, it's, so evolution happens. It's the fittest survive and pass on the genes and everything.
Right.
So that's why, if any organism that's better suited to live in this environment is the one that's going to survive.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But humans are the only ones that are changing the environment to suit us.
Right.
So I think that's why people think that we're not evolving anymore. But if you think about it, we are changing the environment to suit us as we are, but we are still adapting to the environment that we have created.
Right.
That's why people are getting taller and people are getting fatter. And
Yep.
it's like, if we continue going the way that we're going, 1,000 years from now, people are going to be way different.
Right.
People, 1,000 years ago, people were much smaller,
gigantic,
stockier, and
gelatinous blob of a person.
It's like, did you ever see that 3D render of like what a person has to look like in order to survive a car crash? That's one of the craziest looking fucking things. Have you ever? I wish I could remember the author's name, but it's a short story called All Tomorrows. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a sci-fi thing. It I don't want to talk too much about it to spoil it because it is really cool. There's a guy on YouTube that did a video about it that you can go and watch. It kind of tells the story of humanity ascending and becoming like interstellar species. And then like, you know, some humans would go live on this planet, some humans would go live on this planet, and then, you know, the hundreds of thousands of years, their biology is totally different. They're not even recognizable to one another anymore.
No.
And then they keep branching off, and it's just like there's so many. They're humans, yes, but there's so many different. Like some of them are avian now.
Yeah, versions of a human.
Yeah, and then they get there's like an ancient race of aliens that have already conquered the galaxy once. Who come by and say, "Oh, look at these things. We can bioengineer them to suit our needs."
No.
And then they do, and so humans, you know, they turn some humans into like computers, like biological computers, and it's like this hell nightmare existence.
That sounds horrific.
Yeah, it is. It's very Asimov, but it's a really cool story because it kind of has a bit of a twist ending.
Yeah.
There was like one race of humans that the ancient aliens made just to have as pets, and I think they were called the Heathens. Or something like that, and all they did was drink and party and fuck, and that was it. That's all they did.
Nice.
And then other ones were like stitched together as a blanket to be a thinking human computer. So it's, you know, short end of the stick there. But yeah, it's called All Tomorrows. So
that sounds a lot like not the same thing, but what was that? Was it God of Clocks or whatever it was, where they had like that version of hell was like. Just like all the bodies.
The Scar Knight trilogy? Yeah. That's, I'll make a book recommendation. Everybody should read the Scar Knight trilogy.
Yeah, it was a good trilogy.
It is a really good trilogy. I have certain feelings about how it ended.
Yeah.
But the trilogy itself is just remarkable. That guy, the author's name is Alan Campbell. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but you know he used to work on the GTA games.
Yeah, I do remember you had mentioned that.
I think he was like a storyboarder or something like that.
You know, I think that in like the would it be the preamble or whatever to the books? I think they kind of mentioned, they brought it up that he used to work on the GTA series.
Yeah, but those are really cool books. That Alan Campbell is incredible with imagery. Like there's the way he just paints the whole scene in your head. But their version of hell was like this, kind of like a living being. Yeah. And it was like, you know.
It's squishy.
Yeah. It shaped its existence around like what you thought it was.
Yeah.
So some people were able to like make it work for them. And some people were like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And then hell's like, okay, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it was a very strange. Some of the imagery that he used, I was like, that's interesting. I would have never thought to write a story in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, he's super creative.
Yeah.
Like the Glass Warriors from Hell or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like extremely like powerful and everything, but like the smallest bit of damage would destroy them.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, like the way, like they were just like glass people, but they were full of blood. Right. And there was that one scene in the book where he's talking about they were transporting them to some city. And the train ride was particularly rough. Yeah. And, like, the dude went to open the hatch in the room where they were, and it was just, like, broken glass and blood everywhere. Because they were crashing into each other.
Oopsie daisy.
Alan Campbell may have been on LSD when he wrote those books.
Well, who was it? I think Stephen King when he used to write his horror novels and everything, he was just, like, railing coke all the time.
I believe it. I'd absolutely believe that.
I mean, it would make sense for you to have like an altered state of reality in order for you to kind of bring that out. Like, I feel like the further you could like reach down into that using substances, probably the better off you are.
Well, I mean,
in order just to write a story.
Musical artists. Look at the music that came out in the '60s. Everybody was off their
look
fucking
at Jimi
gourd
Hendrix
on everything.
Jimi Hendrix used to put LSD in his headband and go
So
out.
it would sweat on
Yeah,
him.
he'd sweat into it. He's like,
What do you think Stephen King was on when he wrote The Child Orgy and It? He was on ecstasy.
probably been perving out.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, the book version of It has a child orgy in the sewer.
I'm sure that when they were doing the storyboard for the movie, they went, oh, we'll just skip over that.
Just why is, oh man, this is 10 pages. I think it was Chris that told me about it because right before It came out, the new one, he told me he was going to read the book, and he was like, dude, there's like a really weird.
Chris probably went, what the fuck is this?
If I remember correctly, the point of it was so that they could find their way out of the sewer. So if you know about like the cast or whatever, it's a girl and like 5 or 6 young boys.
Yeah.
And I think she's like, hey guys, I have an idea. We're lost in these sewers, but if you all do a train on me, we can get out of here. And I don't know how that works.
Yeah. And weren't they all like 11 and 12?
Yes, severely underage.
Yeah, severely underage. Like some of them haven't even gone through puberty yet. Probably never even had a Woody.
Yeah.
Like, you mean to put what where?
You just stuff it in there like a tissue.
Don't do that inside me.
Yeah. Hey, don't do that to me. Ain't your contraception.
Yeah, writers are a different breed.
Yeah.
They're just different.
They are. And it's cool too, like reading like sci-fi, because, there's a lot of like through lines between authors and between stories.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider things like space travel. Everybody has their own like idea of like how space travel might work.
Mm-hmm.
George Lucas kind of had a mixture of like combustion engines and warp drives.
Right.
And Star Trek was mainly just warp drives or what they called ion engines and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny too, because like when that technology doesn't exist, you can kind of just bullshit your way through it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it works because it just does.
Right.
It's like, I like the way that that Dune did theirs. Like, they had a problem with like artificial intelligence and computers trying to rule humanity, so they got rid of all that, and they said, okay, we're never doing computers again. We're never going to have computers that can think other than just do computations.
Yeah.
And so like their ability to travel through space was only possible because they had people that they gave this certain drug to that they could see into the future and tell what's the best way to get to where they're trying to go.
Yeah, that's like Sears.
Yeah, because like if we go this way, we'll crash into a rock. If we go that way, we'll crash into a rock.
Yeah.
So he like everything was kind of biologically driven in that book. So that was really cool. He just moved away from like we have the Higgs boson particle engine.
Yeah.
Like how does that work? I don't know. It just,
I don't
that's
know.
what it's
It just
called.
does.
It just does. Yeah.
Just trust me.
A big hand with a glove comes out of the top of the ship and like grabs the planet, and pulls it over.
Let's get like a Mickey Mouse glove on it.
I mean, think about fucking Dr. Seuss. Like, does a well-adjusted... Can you say that a well-adjusted individual comes up with something like that? Cat in the Hat, The Grinch.
No.
Even the art style and everything.
Well, you know what he used to do before he wrote those books? Is that he did, what is it? The propaganda for World War II.
Really?
Yeah, so he used to draw propaganda cartoons for the U.S. DOD.
That's crazy.
And he drew some pretty racist shit.
I'm sure he did.
Of
Well,
like-
Disney did the same
Of
thing.
like the Japanese and everything.
Yeah, Disney did the exact same
Yeah.
thing.
So take like the Dr. Seuss art style and make them all Asian.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Like you can go online and look it up. They have the images on Google and everything.
I mean, there was a Popeye cartoon called "You're a Sap, Mr. Jap," and he sells a boat over to Japan, and then like the Japanese sailors in the cartoon all have like the straw hats and the big Coke bottle glasses and like the piano key teeth. And it was just like people used to watch that and be like, "Yeah, fuck them." Now, to be entirely fair, we were at war.
Exactly. Yeah.
A very bloody, like genuine conflict.
Yeah. Well, I think your sensibilities kind of change when somebody is trying to murder you.
Yeah.
You know.
Big difference. I know we had talked about it before with the Japanese. I guess at the time it was the government because they still had an emperor, Emperor Hirohito.
Was he the one that they put in prison?
Did they imprison him?
I think he was the one that they put in prison, and they pretty much had like a dictatorship at that time, right?
I don't know. I think I'm pretty sure Hirohito was the emperor because he was the actual one who went to the. Oh God, what is the name of that
I
boat?
thought he was the one that was in prison, and he told them, "Now you've awoken a sleeping giant."
Oh no, that was some general. I'm pretty sure.
Was it?
I think so. I don't know for a fact.
I could be totally wrong.
But I do know that Emperor Hirohito was on the boat when they signed that peace treaty.
Okay.
Or the surrender or whatever.
Yeah.
He was there. But I mean, they had propaganda for the U.S.
Absolutely.
for U.S. soldiers, and it was like they depicted U.S. soldiers as like these
demonic,
like pale-skinned, pale blonde hair, blue eyes, and they were going to come and rape your baby and do all this, that, and the other, and it's like. Actually, that's the Chinese that are doing that.
Yeah.
We're just going to vaporize you.
Yeah.
We don't feel like getting down there.
Because wasn't it, and I thought that I had read this, so this might actually be wrong, but in the book on Flags of Our Fathers, when it was talking about the Battle at Iwo Jima, how I guess at some point, once they controlled the island or something like that, there was, or it might have been before or after, there was like a village that was there, and so essentially like they were taking and throwing their children
off the cliffs,
yeah. And then jumping over themselves.
Yeah, because they thought that whatever
the propaganda, right?
Yeah, they thought that whatever was going to happen to them,
right? And the U.S. soldiers were trying to get to them to stop them.
Yeah,
like that's so wild.
That's some effective propaganda.
Yeah,
and there no one, not one single nation came out of that war with clean hands.
No.
Not a single one.
No.
Everybody. Now, some people did more fucked up things than others, namely Germany. Kind of kicked the whole thing off.
Looking at you. Like some of us.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was war. And that's a very hand-wavy thing to say. I get that. I mean, there's still people that need to answer for some of the things that happened back then.
No.
And you say back then, it really wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, that was what, 1945 was when the war was over? So that's almost 80 years ago?
Yeah, I do find it funny that, like, and not to, like, diminish or whatever, but a lot of people are, like, really hung up on, like, the sins of the past of the U.S.
Yeah.
It's like, comparatively to what Germany did, and Germany's just sitting over there like, don't look at us.
Yeah.
Germany's sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Like, maybe everybody's will forget.
There's nothing to see here. We had internment camps. America had internment camps for Japanese citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I personally don't know much more than that. I don't know the kinds of things that went on at those internment camps.
Yeah, they didn't really. I don't think there's really a lot that was written about those.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Yeah, It really makes you think. Like, I like to believe we weren't gassing them and working them to death and
but who knows?
Doing inhumane experiments, but why would we tell on ourselves? Why would the government tell on? We won the war.
Right.
If we didn't, and Japan won the war, they would know what happened over there when they went to liberate those people and say, oh my God, look at what they did to us. Then everybody would know.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's like we've always talked about. You don't expect the winning government to tell the truth. because there's no reason for them to tell the truth.
Yeah. You've heard before, history is written by the victor.
Exactly. It'd be sort of like if Edward Snowden didn't release the information about NSA's large spying program that they had. And
on the American people.
On the American people.
That they still use today.
That they still use today. Like nothing's been done about it.
we just know that it's there. We're like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Well, not only that, but there's like that, and then you also have, what was it, like Operation Northwoods, where they were essentially going to blow up a jet airliner above Miami. So
blame it on Cuba.
Blame it on Cuba.
Yeah.
And then they were going to like set off bombs in Miami.
Yeah.
Like killing innocent people, like car bombs.
Kind of like how they radicalized Muslim extremists to fly airplanes into the Twin Towers so that we could go over there and protect oil assets to prop up big businesses over here. Something kind of like that.
And the funny thing about that was that before they did that, the reason was it Al-Qaeda, before they were Al-Qaeda, was the Mujahideen.
Mujahideen, yeah.
Yeah, and they were actually allies of the U.S. in Afghanistan because they were fighting the Russians.
They were fighting the Soviets.
Yeah, right. And there was, there's actually a movie on that. It's called Charlie Wilson's War.
Yeah.
And essentially what it was is that there was a CIA operative that was like, went and talked to this congressman and was like, hey, like if we could get some Stinger missiles over here, we can start blowing up some of these Russian helos. Essentially, because the Russians were in there just like destroying them.
Yeah.
And so they sent that over there. It was super effective. So then the CIA and all the CIA's infinite wisdom was like, oh, we'll just arm them to the teeth. And then so now they'll be up in these mountains and we've essentially radicalized them. And then we just like pulled out and left.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Good luck with everything. And then they got pissed at us.
Yeah. Well,
which also makes you wonder, are we headed in the same direction with Ukraine? Because essentially we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, we're just arming
We're repeating history again.
Yeah. I mean, we just don't learn.
No.
That's the problem with starting these proxy wars, right? Because if you're not fighting it yourself, you're just creating a bigger problem for whoever's left.
Yeah, down the line.
Yeah. I mean, what if, like, okay, here's the thing. What if everybody, the European Union, NATO, whoever, all the allies start just pumping in all this money and weapons and everything into Ukraine? So Ukraine goes from having not a whole lot of anything. I mean, they weren't a third world country, but they weren't on the same level as as us. And you give them all this money, and you give them all these weapons, and you give them all this training, and then they manage to kick Russia out, and they say, well, now we've got all this money. Well, we spent all the money. We liked that money.
Right.
We need some more of that. So if we can get somebody else to start a war with us,
right,
we could get some more money from these guys, or we could just go and take it. And we have the capability to do so.
Right.
Look at all these javelin missiles we've got.
Right.
They just gave them to us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, but also it's not like the Ukraine was like a bastion of like law.
No.
Like they were pretty corrupt themselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, it would stand to reason that once essentially this war at some point is over, if they're able to hold off Russia without getting annexed, that they would just be like, oh, well, I guess we'll just do whatever we want to the region now.
Yeah.
And so essentially you've created...
That we have all the bats.
Right, exactly. It's like when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah. So, I mean, when the war is over, is everybody just going to go, hey, can we get those weapons back?
Yeah.
And that money back since you don't need it anymore?
Right.
They're going to say, no.
No.
We're keeping this.
Right.
Damn it. Here we go again. Let's see. Who do we need a Ukrainian to fly a Boeing 737 into something.
Yeah.
How about the Golden Gate Bridge?
Yeah.
And then you have people riding around with stickers. I learned everything I need to know about Ukraine on 10/12, whatever it happens to be.
And then they're going to look and be like, who could have seen this coming?
Oh my gosh, everybody's just so crazy all the time. Just imagine, like, in my head, I heard Obi-Wan, you were my brother, Ukraine. I loved you. I hate you.
Yeah, it's like he says, it's almost as if we never learn.
Ever. And
maybe just as a human race, we're just doomed to continue to repeat the same mistakes.
I think it's a human thing. If it wasn't us, if it wasn't the U.S. doing it, it'd be someone else.
It'd be someone else, yeah, right.
It's just, I mean, you know, the United States is one of the youngest countries on the world stage right now. You know, if we were gone, somebody would have to fill that void, that power vacuum. It'd be China. Well, I don't know. China's economy is kind of fucked absolutely right now.
Yeah, well, that's because they've spread themselves too thin.
Have you? Let's bring in the podcast because I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
And then we'll get back into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 37th episode of the Thicc Bois podcast. Before we continue any further, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who has been listening. It's crazy that I even feel like there's a reason to make a 37th episode of this. But yeah, we just had so much support, people reaching out, saying they like the podcast and everything. So, you know, big thank you to everybody. But yeah, so China. So China has, do you remember the 2008 recession that we had?
Yes.
China decided.
Oh boy, do I.
China said they could do it better. So, 30% of China's economy, not their GDP, their gross domestic product, their economy, was in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem because real estate's one of the most volatile.
It's if not the most volatile
thing. So in China, the big thing was being a homeowner, owning property.
Right.
So everybody, almost everyone. Enough that 30% of their economy was invested just in that one sector.
Right.
Were buying homes, buying apartments, buying this, that, the other.
Mm-hmm.
But because so many people were doing that, the demand was
outpacing the supply.
So what these companies were doing, and I think the name of the big one was Evergrande or something like that, they would lease property from the government, the CCP. And then
over there, do you actually own your home, or is it you're leasing it from the government? Because from what I understand, the government is pretty much wrapped up in everything.
Well, yeah,
it's wrapped up in everything here too. But.
I think their market is structured after ours very closely.
Okay.
So these real estate companies would lease property from land from the government,
mm-hmm.
turn around and sell plots to the people.
Mm-hmm.
The people would then pay the money for those plots, for those buildings, those homes, whatever they happen to be, to the real estate company. And instead of using that money to begin construction,
mm-hmm.
they would look to the government and say, hey, can we buy some more land?
Yeah.
And so the government is selling this land for development.
Yeah.
The people are paying for development, and no development is happening at all.
Oh, boy.
So this goes on for 12 years. And some people say, hey, I've been paying this mortgage for 12 years, and the home isn't built yet.
Yeah.
You haven't even broken ground.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop paying my mortgage.
Default on my mortgage.
And then somebody else said, hey, you know what? They did the same thing to me. And then millions of other people said the exact same thing. So millions of people
just stopped paying,
have defaulted on their mortgages. And these real estate companies now have no cash flow from the people.
From their customers, right?
They used up all their money on buying land,
right?
But they were supposed to build houses on it.
Yeah.
Now they have no money to build these houses. And the government's like, well, you guys own the land now because we sold it to you.
No.
So that's just nothing. That's nothing, 12 years of nothing.
No.
So not only that, but the banks were telling the Chinese people, not all banks, but some banks, mainly rural areas, were saying, hey, if you open up a savings account here, and you do your mortgaging through us and everything like that, we can offer you 4% interest on your savings account, which is fucking bananas.
That's wild. That's wild.
It's fucking unheard of. Because I think the best you can go here is like 0.05.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, 500 times better than what we have. So people were putting their money into those banks, into those savings account for 4% interest, whatever it happened to be.
No.
What they weren't telling them is that it wasn't a savings account, it was an investment portfolio. What do you think they were investing in?
Yeah.
Real estate? So now
now they've lost all their money.
These people said, hey, I'm going to stop paying my mortgage, and I'm going to take my money out of this savings account that should have grown by 4% over the past 12 years. And the bank said, well, about that. So, I mean...
This is a giant Ponzi scheme.
It's the Ponzi scheme to end all Ponzi schemes, to end China possibly, and I feel horrible for like the Chinese people, because the CCP was supposed to protect them from that exact thing,
and they didn't.
Big fucking surprise.
Yeah.
So now they've people liquidated all their assets in order to buy these homes that they thought they would eventually have one day.
Yeah. Now it's just a plot of land with nothing on it.
There's a plot of land with nothing on it that technically no one owns.
Yeah.
And then the money that they had in their savings account is not there.
No.
It's just
Yeah.
It's gone. It's gone. It went away. So now where does that leave them? I mean, think about it. The 12 years. 12 years into a 30-year mortgage, it's almost half.
No.
And they have nothing. You have nothing nowhere.
Yep.
So what's the next step when you have millions and millions of destitute people? What do you think those people do?
Riot.
They riot. They attack. They go fucking apeshit bananas crazy.
Yeah.
So I think very soon we're going to see some crazy shit go down in China.
Well, and also you think about just from, the clips and stuff that I've seen, it seems, especially too with the whole COVID regime and I don't know how some of this got leaked. I'm sure that some of it probably is propaganda, but it seems like China was essentially ruling with an iron fist during like the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
It's like, so, I mean, those people are probably already upset with the government.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're probably not too happy still.
But you got to hand it to the Chinese. They get out there and protest anyway.
Well, I mean, look at the people down in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
They've been protesting since China took over that region.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that Hong Kong was not under the CCP.
Yeah.
Which it is now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still.
Then they got all up in arms because Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan.
Exactly.
They lost their fucking minds because Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. Have you heard about all the sanctions they levied against her family? They cut any business dealings that they had in any capacity. That's done.
Really?
Done with that. And they're thinking about doing the same thing to the U.S. as a whole. They've actually stopped talks with us on the defense side of things.
No.
So now nobody knows what either military is doing.
No.
So we really got a really good powder keg going on here with a country whose economy is about to just completely collapse, and they're not talking to anybody anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, how is it that you save a country from economic collapse?
Yeah,
war.
Tried and true has been the best way to do that since the dawn of time.
Yeah, because then you can take everybody's anger and redirect it.
Yep.
And be like, oh, you're going to work for pennies on the dollar because we need you to.
Yeah. That's the only reason that America had the economic prosperity that it did. It's because of World War I and II.
Right. Well, not only because essentially everybody went to work in order to supply tanks and raw materials and all that stuff for the war effort, but people were also giving stuff from their house.
Yeah.
Like, here, take this.
Yeah.
That way you can melt it down for bullet casings and everything else.
So you can go kill those evil people.
Yeah, exactly.
Who just don't have any food. Because their government fucked them.
Exactly.
The same way ours would us.
Right.
If they could get away with it.
Right.
Like Scatman said.
Yeah.
Why should we be pleasing any politician heathens who try to change the seasons if they could? Bebop, bop, beat up, bop. What a wise man. Speaking of scams, let's talk about Super Cringe Thursday because
Oh.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So for anybody who didn't see it, our Super Cringe Thursday pick was, I didn't catch that guy's name. Did you happen to catch his name or anything?
No, that's if I'm not mistaken, I think that's actually part of like a small like documentary. Like I guess it was on some like commune somewhere,
Yeah.
which it obviously looks like a commune.
Yeah. Everybody was walking around in like white shirts. And when everyone's wearing a white shirt, then you got to worry.
Yeah.
Look at you, Mormons.
Yeah. White shirts and like everybody's wearing like capris.
Yeah. You got a big problem coming. Yeah. So the Super Cringe Thursday pick was these people who were being convinced that they could generate this force field aura around them in order to ward off physical attacks. So the main guy, the demonstrator, whatever, he's demonstrating with two of his students, I guess is what he calls them. He charges at them at full speed, and they come out. They do like a fake force field thing at him, and he falls on the ground, and he starts convulsing. Now, the reason that this is cringy is because you know that it's fake.
Yeah.
I know that it's fake.
Well, even like they like pan over to one of the guys that did the force field deal or whatever, and you kind of see it on his face. He's like,
Yeah.
like kind of looking around.
So then they get this lady up there to do it, and she's getting her force field ready. And Mr. Man goes charging at her at full speed and just body checks the living hell out of her.
He trucked her.
He trucked her, man. And she goes down to the ground, and she's hurt, and she probably can't breathe, probably knocked the wind out of her.
And this lady looks like she's probably in her mid-50s.
Yeah, you
early
can't
60s.
be crashing into a 50-year-old woman like that. No, she's like a soccer mom.
Yeah.
Like, the most physical activity she does is getting in and out of a minivan.
Right.
So she's obviously in distress. She's hurt and everything. And he goes to check on her. He, like, leans over to check on her. Like,
Immediately.
Immediately. Yeah. Like, oh, no, I've hurt her. And then he remembers, oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to convulse. And then he lays on the back and he starts... Now, here's the thing. Here's what I want to know. Because... like I said, I know that it's fake. You know that it's fake. The only people involved in this that don't know that it's fake was that woman. So, the guy doing it, putting on this whole charade, he knows that it's fake.
Right.
Why did he charge her at full speed knowing that she wouldn't be able to stop him? He did it on purpose. Why would he do that?
Yeah. I mean, I can't come up with any other reason.
Then he wanted to hurt her.
Right. He's like, I've had enough of your shit. The funniest part about the whole deal is that after he bowls her over, he's like laying there, he's like shaking on the ground, and then you see him, he like puts his hand on his head and he like puts one arm on the ground and like slowly gets up and he goes, okay, are you ready to join the circle now?
Oh my
It's like
God.
I told you, it's like the hustle never stops.
Ever.
Ever.
He knocked the fucking snot out of that woman.
It's like he's still like writhing in pain on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the only person that's doing this whole force field thing. I've seen lots of people do that, where they convince people that, your energy, your aura, your chakra, whatever it is, that you have some kind of influence on the physical world just from your spirit or mind.
Right.
You don't. Everything is physical.
There's a guy on YouTube. I don't know if it's his channel or not. I don't think that it is, but there is an MMA practitioner that lives in China, and he fights all those people. And he'll be like, I'll come to your dojo.
Yeah.
And so there's all these videos of this dude.
Does he wear a mask?
Yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like you'll see like this little skinny, like it's not karate. It's
like
whatever
some fake
Yeah,
bullshit they made up.
right.
And he's black. He gave himself a black belt. Yeah.
Right. And so they'll show like the before or whatever where they're like tripping these people and like waving their hand and they all fall down and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's so funny because the first thing he always does, he punches them square in the fucking face. And you see their eyes go, whoa.
Oh my God. What was that?
Because you see the panic in their face as soon as it happens.
Yeah.
Because they'll like, and you can see like everybody else kind of, their eyes get real wide.
Oh no, this is all fake. Yeah. This has all been a sham. I like
because what they're thinking is not what that dude in there fighting is thinking. Because what that dude in there fighting is thinking is that
yeah, my entire empire is about to crumble around me.
Not only that, but I'm going to be physically assaulted in the process.
That's actually the immediate concern. Is the ass whooping that's coming.
And apparently, and this is what I've heard. I don't know if this is true or not. But he's done it so many times to so many of them that he's pretty much made a fool out of all like the Chinese martial arts other than like traditional karate and everything. Because they actually have combat karate.
Yeah.
Where like they're beating the fun shit out of one another. But like all like the Tai Chi and like all that stuff. Essentially, the government has been like, hey, you've made a fool out of all of us.
Yeah.
So your social credit score's in the fucking tank now and you can't go anywhere.
Social credit score. Oh, China. You know, I don't know how those people who go to those quote-unquote dojos don't see through the bullshit. I feel like you would know that a guy didn't just hit you with an energy blast.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how did he convince you?
I think it's just one of those deals where
A fool and his money are soon parted?
people are looking for some type of purpose and belonging.
Yeah.
And if you give them a structure and a belt system,
Yeah.
and you're like, hey, this works. And
But if you're looking for that, why not go do actual karate? Why not go
because
do
that's hard.
jujitsu?
That's harder.
Oh, they want to belong to something, but they don't want to put any actual effort. Okay, that makes
It's like
sense.
where if you went to jiu-jitsu and somebody was choking the shit out of you, you'd be like, ah, you'd be panicking the whole time.
Yeah, or judo, somebody hip tossed you and slammed your shoulder into the ground.
Right. Or it's like, what's the one Russian one that's real fucking crazy? It's like Sambo or something like that.
Yeah.
Where essentially it's
I think samba is a dance.
Yeah, it might be Sambo. It's like Sambo. I think that's the one.
Yeah.
But there's a type of like Russian martial arts where essentially it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but they're punching one another.
No. It's
and like
BJJ,
headbutting one
but
another.
You're also striking any chance that you get.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's like another one where it's like Muay Thai with arms, elbows, clinches, like all that, but you can also headbutt the person.
Yeah. Muay Thai is fucking nuts.
Have you ever watched? Yeah, some of the like you see like some of like the fights online where like the little kids will go out there and do it.
They're fucking fast.
Yeah.
The fucking when you see a man get kicked in the back of the head from somebody standing in front of him and it happened before you blinked, you're like, okay, that's real. Yeah. Like he didn't hit him with it like an energy blast. He kicked him in the back of his head.
Yeah.
From in front of him.
It's got a go-go gadget leg.
Yeah. Go-go gadget extendo leg. Brown belt. I can't think of Inspector Gadget without thinking of that video. There's fucking Krav Maga. This what is it the Israeli Defense Force?
Yeah,
That's
Israeli
their
Defense
martial arts.
Forces, yeah.
There's so many martial arts out there that are fucking for real.
Yeah, Krav Maga, I don't really even know. It's not even really like a martial art. It's just a way to hurt people.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like, you're
fighting for your life.
Yeah, it's essentially like, what's Krav Maga? And it's like they take this cup and like shove it down your throat, like Krav Maga.
No, that's Defendu.
Yeah, Defendu.
Defendu is when you just hit people with things. Yeah. I think we talked about that before. It was like, because we watched that video that was like the top 10 most dangerous martial arts in the world.
Yeah.
And Krav Maga was number 2. And we're like, what? What?
Yeah. What possibly could be number one?
Number 1 is Defendu.
Yeah, it's like take a pencil, like stab somebody with it.
You shoot somebody with a gun. Defendu.
Speaking of stabbing people, That video that I sent you was wild.
Oh, yeah. The vape store guy?
Yeah.
Was it a vape store? I think that's what it was.
Was that like a kitchen knife he was stabbing him with?
It was a big fucking knife. I mean, that blade was like 4 or 5 inches long.
And like he was getting it.
Down
like
to the hilt.
Down to the hilt.
For anybody that hasn't seen fucking Bowie knife. For anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, there's this video that's been going around where these two dudes walk into a vape store, and that guy actually owned the store. It was his store.
Yeah.
I thought he was like an employee there. It was his store. It's a younger guy. He's probably late 20s, if I had to guess.
Later mid-20s. He's not very old,
Not
I
very
don't
old
think.
guy. So it's his store. He's got this, his vape store that he's running. And these two dudes come in to rob it. And it looks like it was their first ever robbery because they just walked right up to the counter like they were going to buy something.
Yeah.
But they were wearing like baklavas on their helmet, on their heads. And the guy at the counter was like, "Can I help you?" And they were just like, "Give me the money."
Yeah.
And he was like, "No." So one guy, he like walks away from the counter and then he grabs a tip jar or something. And the guy's like, "Look, man, just can you at least leave the coins? Like, I need the coins."
Yeah.
And the dude, like, he's not listening to him. He takes the tip jar and then he reaches over the counter and like grabs some shit off the shelf. So at this point, the store owner's like, "Okay, fuck this." He walks around to where that guy is. And then that guy goes to run out of the store.
Right.
The other dude that came in with him hopped over the counter
and made a horrible decision.
The worst mistake of his life. Because the store owner
had enough at that point.
He comes back around. And he's got
like a butcher knife.
knife. And he just starts stabbing.
The funniest part about it was he stabbed him with it, and then the guy's like, "Oh fuck!"
Oh no, I've been stabbed.
He's like trying to get away, and then he like wraps his arm. He like puts him in a headlock, and like pulls him back, and then flips the knife over like this, and it's like stabbing him like
prison shaking this guy.
And he like stabbed him like in between like the clavicle,
like in his back, and then like used it to force the guy to the ground.
And did you turn the volume on? And the guy's like, "Ah, fuck! I'm dying."
He goes, "I'm dead. I'm dead." It's kind of funny because like he throws the guy on the ground after he poked him full of holes. He starts calling 911, and the guy's laying on the ground going, "Please don't let me die, sir." And the guy's like, "Shut the fuck up." But he did, man. He just
he stabbed him like 6 times.
I think he stabbed him 7 times total. Yeah.
Good God, I'd rather be shot.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd rather be shot 7 times.
Yeah, I don't want to be shot. Stabbed.
No.
Have you ever poked yourself with something?
No.
It sucks.
It's like the time I stepped on that belt buckle and it went up into my heel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen 7 times with something that's that long.
Yeah. I've heard before, like, people talk about actually being stabbed, like, by a knife.
Ooh.
They talk about, like, it's the worst. It's, like, one of the worst pains ever. Like, people that have been shot and stabbed, like, I would rather get shot.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, 100%. Like, it hurts. Yes, absolutely it hurts. But it's like getting stabbed is way worse.
Right. You know, I've always said, too, is that, you know, if you really wanted to make it to where only the wars that are necessary get fought, you would take away all the guns and go back to swords and shields.
Yeah.
Because you really had to hate somebody.
Get up in their face.
To run them through with a sword.
Yeah.
And you know those swords were not sharp.
No, blunt as could be. I mean, they've been whacking shields with those things all day. So, I mean, it might chop into you, but it's not going to go real far.
If you had to choose, like, okay, let's say that you lived back during medieval times.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, you get to choose your weapon.
Yeah.
Would you rather have a sword, or would you rather have, like, a mace or like a morning star?
Like a solid handle with the ball with spikes on the end?
Yeah.
I feel like I could whiff more swings with a sword and still have some stamina.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I whiffed like 2 or 3 hits with the mace, I'm just wide open.
Right. I think...
But you got to get through armor, right? Assuming we're all wearing armor.
Right.
A sword can't do much against armor.
Right.
I mean, you can. I mean, you hit. Say you get one good square hit on a guy's chest plate with a morning star.
You cave it in.
And you cave it in, and he's done.
Right.
But, with the sword, you got to, fight for a long time and find that opening and get him in a weak spot in the armor.
And you've got all these other people fighting.
Yeah, it's not a 1v1.
Yeah, it's not 1v1.
It's a fucking free-for-all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I would rather have, like, a 30 or 40-pound, like, Warhammer.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to be calculated enough to smack you with it
one time.
One time.
Yeah, I just got to hit you in the shoulder with it.
Right. It's like even if you were to put up the shield like this, and I just come down as hard as I'm gonna
break your forearm.
I'm gonna break your forearm.
Probably dislocate your shoulder.
Dislocate your shoulder, and you're gonna be writhing around on the ground in pain. And I'm gonna walk by you while somebody comes by with a sword and stabs you.
Yeah, in that weak spot in your armor, wherever it happens to be. But you're not going to swing that thing all day long. You're probably going to be able to knock. Say you hit 4 guys with it. You're winded after that.
I think I could probably get 10 of them.
You think you could get 10 dudes?
I think I could get if I'm on the outside.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm on the inside, I'm fucked.
Like you're in the middle of everything.
I'm in the middle of everything. You might as well grab it like this and just spin around.
What if they had like a platoon of guys that did that, like on the front lines, just swung around and slowly moved us? I think I would rather be. I mean, it's the armor. That's the armor is the thing you gotta get past. Because when you watch these movies and everything, and these dudes are fighting each other like that. A dude gets stabbed through his chest plate with a spear. That doesn't happen.
No.
It would glance off of that because it's a fucking metal chest plate.
Right.
And those suits of armor weighed 60, 70 pounds.
Right.
And you're covered from head to toe in metal. So, I mean, it would have to be a fixed, actually, I'd say an axe. Because you still have the weight of a warhammer.
Right.
And more force would be on the very edge of that axe.
Right.
And I feel like I could swing that around more than a big two-handed hammer.
Yeah.
Or
like a one-handed battle axe or something like that. Yeah.
Because if you hit a dude, say you
so you would still want the ability to still have the shield.
I would want the shield and a one-handed axe.
Right.
Because if I go up against a guy with a shield and a sword, I feel like if he hits my shield with his sword, that force is still going to disperse into my arm.
Yeah.
It's going to suck. But it's probably not going to cut into anything.
Right.
But if I hit him with this axe that's weightier, I'm going to be able to put more force into him, possibly knock his defending arm down out of the way, and then maybe follow up with something else. I don't know. I've never fought anybody with a melee weapon before. I just assume that's how that would work.
It is interesting to think about because, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have, it's like MMA, but it's with medieval armor.
That, yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, they beat the snot out of each other.
Yeah, it's blunt. Everything's blunt. You can't really. I don't think they do war hammers because you could still probably kill
somebody with that. Yeah.
Because if it's 1v1, I want the war hammer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because there's a range where I'm lethal.
Right.
It's much wider than whatever range you have. Yeah.
It's really all I have to do is make a diagonal downward swing.
Yeah.
And you just have to be in a range of the head of that thing.
Yeah. But if you miss,
you can't whiff it.
You're wide open for a while until you got to get that thing back up.
Right. So really the best thing to do was bring it down and then bring it right back up.
Yeah. Or follow all the way around if you missed.
Or spin around, fall it around, and then when he comes in range again, then you smack him in the head.
They, whenever you watch, say Lord of the Rings, or whatever, when they assault a castle or Game of Thrones, they always show these guys run up to the walls and throw ladders up and people are scaling the walls, and that's not how that went down back then.
No,
it was a war of attrition.
Right.
So if people were holed up in a castle.
Right.
If you tried to attack that thing, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Because, number one, they have the high ground.
Right.
They've got all the defenses. They're dug in. They're in a fucking castle.
Right.
Even if you get in, the way those castles were designed worked in the favor of the people inside the castle.
Right. Because what do? You cut off the supply lines.
Yeah, so what you do is you cut off the supply lines. You make sure that they don't get any food, they don't get any water.
Right. And that is much more horrific for the people inside than if those people came up over the ladders.
Yeah. So basically, if you're in a castle and an opposing army shows up, you're already dead.
Right.
You've already lost.
Right.
Your only hope then is that the people who are outside of the castle can kind of free up some of those supply lines.
Exactly.
I mean, think about the staircases in the castles, that they went around the left-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk into like a tower or whatever, the stairs went up and to the left. That way, the people who are defending down and to the right can kind of swing their swords around.
Yeah.
You've got this weird angle, you know?
Yeah.
You might like catch a short sword in the side of the head before you even saw the guy.
Right. Well, not only that, but they would cut off the supply lines, which is horrific because people would essentially starve to death. People were eating their own children and drinking their own urine and eating their own shit.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but they would also take like dead animals
and
they would launch them up over the walls.
So now you got disease.
Right.
Yeah. What a fucking awful way to go.
Yeah. Well, just times were different back then.
I mean, I guess.
Like, your concern for other human life was zero. You gave no fucks.
Zilch.
Zilch. Because guess what? Any day now, it could be your turn.
It's going to be you.
Yep.
You're going to get a warhammer in the back.
It's going to break your L5 and cook.
Ugh. Yeah, if there's any time you don't want to be a paraplegic, it's medieval times.
Exactly.
They didn't have wheelchairs back then. They just threw you on the dead body cart with everyone else.
Which is really crazy because you think about the way that like they essentially took care of as far as like medical stuff was concerned. It was essentially the same up until modern times.
Yeah.
Like back during like the Civil War, you had some fucking alcoholic standing over you, pouring rye whiskey on this half blown off limb. Ooh. And then he just goes to town with this
hacksaw,
with this dirty hacksaw that he just used to hack up this other dude.
Yeah, he was not done screaming yet.
Yeah, exactly. And they essentially had a frying pan they had over an open fire, and they go psh, cauterize your stump.
Did you ever see that field manual for how to do a field amputation?
Yeah, it's wild.
So they would. Say it was it transhumor or whatever? No, transhumor would be past your elbow.
No.
So if you, say you got shot right here with one of those balls that are this big, it hits you right above the wrist.
It's not going that fast.
Not going fast
comparatively.
enough to just pass through.
Yeah.
So anything from here down is just gone.
Just knocks it off.
Yeah, not blown off, not shot off.
Yeah.
Knocked off. Like you had it hanging out of a car and you hit a street sign with it. So anything from about mid forearm down, all that's been blown away. So what they would do is they would cut the flesh in 4 places on the top, bottom, left, and right hand sides of your forearm, and they would peel that back. And then they would take the bone and go back behind to where it was fragmented and saw that off. Go ahead and get that out of there. And then they would take those flaps and fold it back up over the edge and sew that together. And then pour whiskey on it and put a Band-Aid around it. Now, I mean, how easy is it to get an infection?
Yeah.
It's the simplest thing to do. There's nothing easier than getting an infection in a wound.
Yeah.
So now you've got this stump. There's no Percocet. For one.
You're just writhing in pain.
So you're just writhing. They did have morphine back then, but that was basically heroin.
Yeah.
They
weren't giving that out.
No. So, even if you did survive all that trauma, now you got this gangrenous stump.
Yeah.
That's just
and they were probably
only
giving the morphine to like higher up like officers. If you were Private Schmuckatelli, and you got your arm blown off or knocked off at the elbow,
you're over here laying in the medical tent. It doesn't even have walls.
It's an open air medical tent.
Ugh. You probably still got that cotton suit on.
Ooh. There's some stupid fucking drummer off in the distance.
Yeah. Just shoot me in the fucking head and be done with it. Just shoot me.
It's like I've always said, like...
you can't even live any kind of life after that.
You want to talk about the worst time to be alive? That was the worst time to be alive.
Yeah.
Absolutely the worst.
You think colonial America is the worst?
Absolutely. I would rather live as a slave in ancient Egypt.
Really?
It might as well be the same fucking thing. And you know what? At least then I get run through with a fucking sword,
Yeah.
and then it's just fucking over,
you
and I ain't got to
just
worry
die.
about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about some stupid fucking musket that doesn't have rifling. Somebody's gonna shoot it over here, and I'm standing 500 yards to the left, and I'm the person that gets hit with the fucking.
You get hit in your meniscus.
What a stupid way to fight a war.
Yeah. If I had to go back in time and live in any kind of period, and I could like choose like my status, you know, okay, well that's an easy question. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'd want to be royalty somewhere, probably Egypt,
Yeah.
because they lived lavishly.
Yeah.
Like all their like those alabaster stone walls, and like
Yeah.
you bathed every night and had food and everything like that. But I would also, you know, if I couldn't choose, I would say Mongolia.
Yeah.
Just because that's, you know, you just ride around on horses and kill people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm killing people anyway, but at least Mongolia is pretty.
Yeah.
Anywhere I go, if you go back anywhere, you're going to have to kill somebody or be killed.
Mongolia is such a wild looking place. Have you ever like seen the photos or like videos of like
Yeah.
up
Like
on like the plains and everything? It's crazy looking.
It doesn't look like it's from this world. There's nowhere else that looks like Mongolia.
No.
And the strange thing too is Mongolia has like those people still wear furs.
Yeah.
So you like, but they have internet.
Yeah.
So they've kind of like kept. They were like the only people who are like, we're going to keep this stuff we like from both sides of this. We're not really going to transition into one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got like modern medicine, but they still like live in a yurt.
Yeah. I specifically remember there was a show that used to come on Netflix, and it was these two guys. I think they might have been from Canada, and they were traveling the world, and they were stopping at all these different places. And it wasn't like they were going to like Paris and like all these other places. They were going to it might not be Egypt. It might have been like Morocco or something, where they have like the ancient. It's like up on a plateau, and like you go around like this rock wall, and there's like this ancient like structure that's built into this.
I know what you're talking about.
You know which one I'm talking about? Yeah. So they
yeah.
like went and saw that, and like they were staying with the locals and like eating all the same cuisine as the locals and everything. And they went to Mongolia.
Yeah.
And they took like a 12-hour like bus ride.
Yeah.
Like out through just these fields to like get to like it was like a
Where, like a tribe
like
was.
like a nomadic herding community, and they just stayed with them. And like it was so crazy because like they're essentially living at the bottom of this like mountain.
Yeah.
And like it's like the mountain's here, and then it's just like wide open right there.
Yeah.
So like all that wind is just coming in, and they're like, it's fucking miserable here.
Yeah. But that's just that's how they live.
Because like Mongolia is like right up there next to Siberia. So you have like
on the other side of those mountains.
On the other side of those mountains.
Siberian tundra.
Right.
Yeah.
So like all that is just coming down off those mountains. So you have all this Arctic wind that's rushing down onto the plains.
Yeah. That's why they all wore like yak fur all
Exactly.
the time. It's so interesting when you look at like how much like the difference in like biome that a mountain range makes.
Yeah.
So consider like what's the mountain range over there in the west? The west.
The Rocky Mountains?
Is it the Rocky Mountains? I thought the Rocky Mountains is over here.
No, that's the Appalachian.
Okay, yeah. So it must be the Rocky Mountains.
No.
Yeah, that's right. Denver and all that. Yeah. So like on the west side of the Rocky Mountains is fucking desert
Right.
until you get to the coast.
Yeah.
Because then there's actual water and everything. But it's like it's a bisected. So immediately on the east side of the Rocky Mountains is like all green farmland for a long time.
Right. There's the high plains.
Yeah. It's so interesting that those mountain ranges make that much of a difference.
Yeah, I remember going out to Greeley, Colorado, which is up above Denver. And so you'd have the mountains. Like with the hotel that I was staying at was like, it was like in a, like there's like a mall, and so it's built up. Like there's like a cheesecake factory and stuff there. but like where my hotel was at, you could step outside and look to the left, and like you see the mountain range.
Yeah.
So it was really cool, but it, like you said, it was like a high plains there. But I remember going out to the craziest contrast that I've ever seen is going out to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
So with Boise, there's like the mountains like encircle Boise.
Yeah.
So it's like sitting in this bowl. But Boise sits a little bit further down than Kuna, Idaho.
Yeah.
I think it was Kuna. No, it's Kuna Foods. But it was whatever that is like up a little bit higher.
Like elevation.
Higher elevation,
Yeah.
right? And so where I was, the job that I had to go do for my old job that I worked was like 10 miles up the road. So I flew into Boise and went to the hotel, and like the next day I was driving, and you have to like drive up this huge, it wasn't a mountain, but like up to the plateau.
Yeah.
And once you get up on the plateau, desert. Like a legit desert. Tumbleweeds.
Wow.
There was nothing there.
It's a
and
completely
you could turn,
different biome.
Right. And you could turn and look the other way, and you see Boise, and there's green trees and all this.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. But up on this plateau, it's just desert for as far as you can see.
Yeah.
And it's this bowl of mountains all the way around you.
Wow.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's so interesting. Because, like, you know, those small changes just in, like, elevation, wind, temperature, teeny tiny changes can make the world of difference.
Yep.
I mean, you can even see it, like, when you travel from here in Georgia down to Florida. It's almost like the moment you cross state lines, everything looks different.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you go past, like, where Valdosta's at and go
start seeing
towards
sand.
Yeah, down towards, like, Lakeland, Florida and everything.
It's weird.
Yeah, because down near, like, Valdosta area is very flat. It's very flat, and the trees are real short.
Yeah.
Like, you have, like, some pine trees. There's just fucking pine trees everywhere.
Yeah.
But once you essentially cross over and start getting into Florida, it starts getting, like, the shrubbage gets a lot greener.
Yeah.
It gets a lot more
Denser,
compact
yeah.
and denser. And it's obviously, especially, too, like, if you go down towards, like, Lakeland and make that left and get on 10 going east towards Jacksonville,
Yeah.
there's, like, a long stretch there where if it wasn't for that road being there, that would all be swamp.
Yeah.
And it's pretty evident that if that road wasn't there, it would all be swamp.
Right. That's, you know, you talked about how flat it was. That's when we went down to Florida a couple months ago. The place where we were is just totally flat. It's so weird being on their, like, main highway because it's just straight.
Yeah.
It's straight. It's like 100% completely straight. There's no difference in elevation for miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like that up here in Georgia.
No.
Every road, the main highway, all of them are up and down and left and right because you just,
Yep.
I mean, that was the lay of the land. That's how
Right.
you had to go.
You're essentially sitting at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
That's essentially where we are.
I mean, you can, you know,
But that just to show you how far the foothills
stretch out.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Appalachian Mountains is, like, I think the oldest mountain range as far as, like, formation.
It's pretty old.
Like tectonic formation,
Right,
whatever, how it's
yeah.
formed or whatever. Like, there are cave systems in the Appalachian Mountains. I think Mammoth Cave is one of them.
Yeah.
Up in Kentucky, where they've like carbon dated stuff in those caves that are older than the first ever fossils found.
Really?
Yeah, so the Appalachian Mountains are older than they have been around since before bones have been around. So it's just, I don't know, it's just wild to me.
Yeah, I do know that the Appalachian Mountains, they're, if not the oldest, one of the oldest mountain ranges. And I think the way they said essentially that you can tell is because they're not as tall as all the other mountain ranges.
Yeah.
Like, that's one good indicator.
Yeah.
Is that they've just had
And they're
time.
not as jagged.
Right.
They're very rounded. Like, if you've ever been up, like, you know, we go up to Tennessee or whatever, and you look over the Smoky Mountains, they're very, they look eroded. Like,
Right.
you know, the way rocks get eroded when they're in, like, in water or whatever.
Right.
So, like, how long does something have to be around, or how long does a mountain range have to be around in order to
Right.
be smoothed out like that?
Right.
I mean, you got the Rocky Mountains, they're fucking jagged,
Yeah.
pointy things, or the fucking Swiss Alps,
Yeah.
which are stupid steep
Yeah.
Like, so my only real experience with mountains is, of course, the Smoky Mountains. And they're very, they're not as steep. They're tall, of course,
Yeah.
but they're rounded and they're not very
Right.
steep. But then you look at like the Swiss Alps and it's like fucking 90 degrees. It's just straight up in the air. You can walk up to the bottom of the mountain and look up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen like videos and stuff where people like, cause they'll like take video of like the Swiss Alps and everything, like where they'll be standing at, and then like you like look up and then like there's the top of the mountain.
Yeah. Directly
above them.
Yeah.
Whereas like with the Rocky Mountains, it's not, you can see it from a distance, so you obviously get an idea of how large everything is, but it's not one of those deals where you can just look up like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably could if you were standing like the right angle, like below the mountains or whatever, but
I saw this thing a while back where this dude had made this wooden ball. It was a globe that he had carved out completely by hand, and all of the continents and countries and everything were embossed or whatever on the wooden globe per elevation. So, Florida, if you're looking at the United States, Florida was like almost kind of level with the sea.
yeah.
And then, of course, you had the Rocky Mountains were standing real tall off of the globe. But then over to on the east side or the north side of the Atlantic was Greenland. And Greenland was like this thick, like 3 or 4 inches thick, sticking off of the globe. And I was like, that can't be right. I was like, what is Greenland's elevation? It's like 13,000 feet above sea level.
Well, just because of the glacier?
I guess because it's a glacier.
Yeah.
But I was like, I had no idea that it was like that. So I looked it up on Google, like on Google Images or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, you can just like, if you're on a boat and you're going to Greenland, all of a sudden there's this monolith of ice. That's Greenland. And like the top of it is like where,
7 people live.
7 people live, like way up there. How did they get up there?
I remember being in school, and like they used to use, I don't know what the name of the map was, but I just remember like looking at Greenland on that map. I was like, oh my God, that is the biggest.
Yeah.
Like, how is that not a continent? That's bigger than Australia.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
It's just ice.
Yeah, it's just complete ice.
Yeah.
And they're like, not only that, but that's not an accurate representation of the land mass of
How
Greenland.
big it actually is, yeah.
It's just, I guess they had to stretch it out at the top.
Yeah.
But being like a kid, being in like first grade, it's like, is nobody else seeing this?
Yeah, you can kind of just take it as at face value. I mean, it's, I've read before that, maps, like mapping the globe is almost impossible. I think it's actually impossible because it is a globe. So it's impossible to take a globe, a sphere, and project it onto a 2D plane and have everything be shown one-to-one.
Correctly sized, yeah.
Correctly sized. So a lot of people don't really kind of understand how large or how small some things actually are.
Right. It's sort of like Africa. Africa's massive.
Yeah. You have no fucking clue how big Africa is.
Massive.
It's like, so you can go on Google Earth. You ever just go on Google Earth and just look at the planet?
Yeah.
I do that sometimes. And like, I'll like hover over like Africa. There's really no good way to get Africa all on the screen at one time.
Right.
It's so fucking big.
Yeah. Yeah, really, Africa, is Africa the largest continent? No, Asia's the largest.
Yeah,
Asia's the largest continent. And I've always found it strange because Asia and Europe, it's the same thing, right? There's really
nothing kind of
to separate the two, right? As far as like land mass is concerned. Really, the main thing that you're differentiating between is cultures.
Yeah.
Right.
When you take North and South America, you can kind of draw that line at the tip of Mexico.
Yeah.
Where it suddenly opens back up into Brazil.
Right. So you kind of get an idea of like, oh, these are kind of two different sort of continents.
Is Mexico bisected by the equator? I think it is.
No.
Is all of Mexico north of the equator?
I think so. I think, it's dissected down near Panama, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right at where?
That's right at the equator.
Yeah, that's right at the equator, yeah.
And that's Panama is essentially the country that separates North and South America.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. I think because it's like Panama, and then below that's like Venezuela. Right?
I think it's Brazil. I think Brazil is like if you're talking about like if you're traveling down south, I think Brazil's the first country you would come to.
No, I think Brazil is like on that right hand side. So I think it's like
Doesn't it extend up north a little bit?
it does, but I think please feel free to correct us later on once this episode releases. But I think it's like Panama sits right here, and then below that's Venezuela. And then you have like Colombia that sits next to Venezuela.
Yeah.
And then Brazil's next to Colombia.
I know Brazil's the big one.
Brazil's the biggest one. And then below Brazil, you have like Argentina.
Yeah.
And like Uruguay or something like that, I think might be landlocked in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you have Chile that like runs down the side.
Yeah. Chile's funny when you look at like how they drew those borders.
Yeah.
They're like, we just want all of this.
Well, let's take all this.
We'll
right
take
here.
the coast.
Yeah. Chile's got a crazy geographically, it's insane because it has the highest, most driest desert in the entire world.
Yeah.
It rains less than an inch there.
Jeez.
And then below that, you just have this ridge line of volcanoes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, consider how long the country is.
Yeah.
It's covering a lot of different elevations.
Right.
I mean, even though it is mostly coastline, it does extend inland a little bit, but that's so many different elevations.
Right.
So like we said before, those changes in elevations make a huge difference as far as like, the biome goes. It's like, have you ever seen where they'll like walk up to like the edge of the Amazon forest?
Mm-hmm.
And you can like stand like immediately to my left.
There it is.
Is the Amazon forest, and immediately to my right is like the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the Sahara Desert's a lot larger than it used to be.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know. I just think it's so neat that, the places are so wildly different from one another.
Right.
And you consider that people live in all these different places. It's no wonder that we are so wildly
radically
different. Yeah. It's like it's just in the way you think.
Right.
And even language. Language shapes the way that you think. And language could be shaped by the land that you live in.
Right. Well, it's like we've talked about with language. It's like even like with Russian. Like if you're speaking Russian, there are not certain words in Russian that we use in English.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you convey?
You have to explain
that idea.
What that idea is. There's no word for that idea. Yeah.
Right. So it's like if you were to create a language, and let's say that within that language that you had no word for love, like take like Greek for example. Like Greek has like, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 different versions of love.
Really?
Yeah, you have like...
It's like ethos and...
Like agape and like... And I don't know exactly...
No, ethos is a type of writing, my bad.
I know agape is one of them, and I don't specifically remember what kind of love that refers to, but there's one, it's like sexual attraction, like that kind of love, and then one's
what
like...
we would call lust.
Right, and then one's like a familial love, and then one's for like a love that you have for like your friends, right?
That might be where like platonic comes from.
I think so, maybe. Feel free to correct us on that later.
We're going to say a lot of stuff wrong.
But I do know that, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that it is Greek. But I think that Greek has a bunch of different like words that they use for our word love. So it's you can more accurately describe the feeling it is that you have as opposed to just using this blanket term for love.
It's really neat that, think about like if you were tasked with creating a language from the ground up, well, where would you even start?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to base it off of English.
Right.
But English is like this very modular language.
Right.
Like where we just...
It kind of takes something from here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have like 26 letters and that encompasses everything, and you just kind of build like building blocks. Whereas like other languages are ideas.
Right.
Rather than like, this very like formulaic kind of thing. Like most Oriental languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, all those like characters, what they call characters, like mean or represent something.
Right.
Think about fucking hieroglyphics was a language. It was a written language.
Right.
I mean, you can't speak in hieroglyphics.
Right.
But, those fucking murals and everything were like records of history. That was how they recorded their written history.
Right. Well, I mean...
Not far off from like cuneiform.
Yeah, you could say the same thing for emojis.
Yeah, that's true. That's entirely true, yeah.
Like, if you go look on any, like, post or anything, if somebody puts a certain string of emojis together, you kind of know what it is that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like if somebody puts like an eggplant in a water thing,
Yeah.
you kind of get an idea.
That's a nut.
You have an idea of what it is they're
Yeah.
referring to.
Or a peach.
Yeah.
And like the gas cloud.
Yeah. It's like, that's a fart.
That's a fart. There was right before we get out of here. I'm gonna butcher this, but there's a story about a Japanese poet that was like very like who's so sure of himself,
Yeah.
and he used to write these poems about how awesome he was, essentially. And he wrote a poem about how the strongest winds couldn't move him.
Yeah.
And one of his like friends or whatever, he sent him that poem, and his friend just sent him back a letter with the word for fart, and sent it back to him. And so the dude got so pissed off that his friend sent him just in response was just a piece of parchment with the word fart on it. That he got in a boat and went across the lake to confront the guy, and he was like, "The strongest wind couldn't move you, but a fart moved you across the lake." Something like that. People, even if it's a fake story, I mean, people have been fucking with each other like that for people love fucking with
They've
each
been
other.
trolling everyone.
Yeah, we do a little bit of trolling. Well, that's all we've got time for today. I just want to give a heads up. So in October, we're probably going to miss 2 episodes on that because I'm going to be out of town towards the end of that month. But we will try to maybe do a double.
Yeah, we can do that.
We do something like that.
Maybe do a double and then maybe do like a best of and then
Yeah, we'll put together a little something.
Yeah.
Something that we can give to the listeners.
yeah.
But yeah, so thanks everybody again for listening. We hope that you enjoyed. We still got a couple stickers left if you guys want stickers. If we said anything on the podcast that we were absolutely wrong about or you disagree with, feel free to correct us or yell at us or however you wish to communicate with us. You can reach us on Facebook, email, or we're also on Twitter. And
Didn't we have some corrections that we were going to go over?
Yes.
Let's go over those real quick before we get out of here.
All right, you want to vamp while I pull this up?
Yeah. So, just again, everybody, before we go through these corrections, thank you once again for listening. Thank you most of all, thank you for your time. We know that you probably have better things to do with your time than listen to us sit here and pontificate on stupid shit.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. And
You could always choose to be brainwashed by the government instead.
yeah. Instead, choose to be brainwashed by the Thicc Bois.
Yeah. So this segment of I'm Sorry comes from Steven Stout. Shout out to Steven. He's been a long-time listener of the podcast. This is in regards to Ford versus Ferrari. He says, by the way, Ford v. Ferrari is one of the most truthful movies about the situation. Carroll Shelby was one of the first Americans to win the 24-hour Le Mans. He then was picked up by Ford to beat Ferrari after a bad business deal, a.k.a. Ford built the planes that bombed the Ferrari plant in World War II.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they wouldn't merge. Ken Miles was the driver that drove the GT to the 1-2-3 victory against Ferrari, but was robbed of the title for complicated reasons. He passed during a training accident later on. Also, Lamborghini tried offering advice to Ferrari about better aerodynamics, but Ferrari told him to stick to tractors. So he came out with a car that blew Ferrari away. They still currently make tractors and are massively popular in Europe.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Our first segment of I'm Sorry.
Yep. So, like we said, if you have any corrections that you want to make to the podcast, feel free to either send us a message on Facebook. If you have one of our personal numbers, you can send that to us there.
Yeah, just text.
Yeah, just text us.
This is a very intimate podcast, isn't it now?
or just send it to the email address, and you can always find those in the show notes.
Yep.
So just click one of those and let us know. And
let them have it.
Yep. And
let
then
her rip.
We'll go over the corrections in the following episode.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.